Welcome to Hear Her Sports, the podcast about exceptional female athletes and women in sports. I'm Elizabeth Emery. Before I introduce this week's guest, I have a quick plug for another podcast. As of August 1st, WIS Sports launched Off the Front, a monthly podcast focusing on all things cycling and hosted by me. The first episode features Emma Pooley, current multi-sport athlete and former super accomplished road racer, a coaching tip from mountain bike world champion Allison Dunlap, feminist cycling writer and publisher Ellie Blue. We're on Apple Podcasts and wherever you normally listen to podcasts. I also have a link to Off the Front in episode notes of Hear Her Sports. I hope you check it out. All three guests are super smart and articulate. Plus, among other things, Emma and I talk about the recent 2-day women's version of the 3-week men's Tour de France. So that was pretty interesting. Now onto our regularly scheduled programming. This week I speak with Endurance Adventurer Katie Spotz, who is best known for rowing solo across the Atlantic. She was the youngest person to do that. She lives in Cleveland, so she biked over to my studio, and we had a great time, as you will hear, because I spent a great deal of the time laughing hysterically. Visit the website's episode notes for details on races and organizations that she mentions. And as usual, I start off by asking Katie to introduce herself.
My name is Katie Spotz, and my background is in endurance challenges. I've been doing them for about 10 years, and the biggest endurance challenge I've probably embarked on is a solo row across the Atlantic, rowing 70 days alone at sea from Africa to South America. But what I'm currently doing is ultra running, so that's kind of my latest passion.
I'm sure that we could talk for the whole show about your row across the ocean, but mostly I'm interested in, like, what are the things now? It's been 8 years, right? It's almost 8 years. So what are the things now that you remember most and are most important to you from that time?
I mean, what really pulled me through is having a strong why. Like, you could figure out the what as long as you know why you're doing it. So since the row, I think the biggest, takeaway is like seeing that impact that it's made. So I've been able to go to India, South Africa, and Kenya for a month, helping like build the projects. So it really, like, before the row, I didn't really know much about the water crisis, and I that was really what it was about. It was a row for water to raise money for clean water projects. So I think it's just solidified the idea of whatever you're passionate about, find a way to give back along the way. And I'm definitely like humbled by, how much support there was to make that possible, because now there's at least 15,000 people that have clean water as a result of the challenges.
Wow, I didn't realize that. So you're still involved with the clean water?
Yep. So I've partnered with a nonprofit called H2O for Life, and they're based out in White Bear Lake, right outside of Minneapolis. And they work with schools. So they do school-to-school partnerships where they educate and inspire kids here to help kids in the developing world. So, I mean, we've seen that if you're able to get water in schools, that's a way to keep kids in school, because it's often them that are going and collecting water. So I do work with them speaking at schools, and we've done quite a bit of that over the past about 3 years.
How are the kids here helping the kids there?
So it's very grassroots. They'll do things like penny wars, and they'll do like a walk for water or run for water. 4 miles is the average distance that people walk to collect water. So a lot of times they do that. I mean, they've sold origami, they've sold crafts, they've done dodgeball tournaments, they've went to shopping malls and asked to collect the coins that people throw in water fountains. There's really an infinite amount of ways that they've been able to do that. So it's really not so much now me, pulling from my personal context as much as it's inspiring kids to really take that initiative on their own.
So you're still going to schools here?
I am, yeah. So this fall, probably not much in Cleveland, but because that the charity is based out in Minneapolis. So looking at doing some school stuff this fall out there.
So you're adventurous now, and you've been adventurous for a decade. Have you always been adventurous?
I've always been stubborn. My parents will vouch for that. Yeah, I think a part of it is having two older brothers, and then all their friends were around, and wanting to always keep up with them. I always loved riding the bike, climbing trees, just playing in the mud, being a tomboy. So yeah, I would say that I did always love adventure.
Because adventure is very different from sport.
Yeah, it is. And I'm glad you point that out, because at certain points in my life, I'm more into the sport and less into the adventure, and more into the adventure and more into the sport. Like, I think triathlon is the farthest from that with working in certain heart rate zones and being very calculated and getting like all the science behind it. And adventure, you just kind of throw that all out the window, and you're just, seeing what the day unfolds, because you realize that you can plan and plan and plan, but they say that it's not an adventure until something goes wrong. So that's kind of the point of an adventure, to put yourself in situations where you do have to, I feel like, yeah, it seems like a lot of the adventures were reckless, but even the row, it was 2 years of pretty extensive planning. And I was like training out on the Pacific Ocean with a woman that had rowed across the Atlantic. I was doing a lot with other ocean rowers, because really there's not like an ocean rowing for dummies book. So you have to really go to the people who have done it. So yeah, I would say that ultra running kind of fits both the whole, like the sport side and the adventure side, because I don't know, it's just less competitive. I think just finishing is kind of its own feat. And
I don't know that much about ultra running, but it seems like often things go wrong. So there is that.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I've done a lot of meditation, like retreats, and that's something that I incorporate in my life, try to practice on a daily basis. And I feel like ultra running is very special in that you can kind of get in that meditative state. And I wasn't bored or like, when is it going to be over? When I look back at this weekend, I was talking to my friend about it, and that was there supporting, and it was like, wow, that went by really, like, I can't believe it's over, like, because you build it up so much, and then I don't know, it's weird, but yeah. So this weekend was the Eagle Up Ultra in Canal Fulton, a 24-hour challenge. So there were people doing the 100-mile, 100K, 50-mile, and 50K. So really whatever they wanted to do in those 24 hours.
So tell me a little bit about that race.
So it was a 5-mile loop, and it was pretty shaded, and there were about 300 runners. I had done an ultra January. It was a cool one. It was where you started New Year's Eve, and then you ran 24-hour or 100 miles until New Year's Day. So I think the cutoff was like 30 hours for that one. But this past ultra was my third 100-mile run, and the last one I was injured and decided to push through it. So, going into this one, I've already signed up for Ironman Louisville, and I really wanted to make sure that I wasn't injuring myself. And so first was like not being injured. And then there's this guy named Lazarus Lake, and he started the Barclays Marathon. And it's like considered, there's like It's a really quirky guy. Like, he starts the race by smoking.
I saw the movie. It's so
okay, good. So he was at the one on New Year's, and he was saying, nutrition, like, just eat what you want. Just, you don't need that much food. You don't need to walk. Like, and I don't know. He got, like, ever since I met him and learned about that, like, I'm like, man, maybe he's like, the last couple ultras and most ultras people walk. But this one I was like, I don't know. I just want to see about not walking at all. So.
Was it hilly at all?
No. Tennessee was hilly, but this was flat. So I was either, my original goal was to go the whole 24 hours and get 110 miles in. And when I realized that I might be able to break 20 hours on the 100-miler, I pushed it on the last, 5 miles to reach that. So at that point, I was starting, I would say at mile 98 is when I started to feel like, where my gait was changing, and because I was in pain. And so I decided that, whether it was either time or distance, this happened to be the time one. So I was really happy with, dropping 2 hours from my first and 4 hours from my last. So I decided to stop at 20 hours and got a little bit under 20 hours and get that 100-mile in. I loved it. I know it doesn't make sense, but I just love it.
I think what doesn't make sense to me about that, I'm sort of fascinated by the ultra, and I have seen that movie about the Barkley, is the 5-mile loop part of it.
Edgewater, the first one, it's the national championships. It was a 0.9 something mile loop.
Oh my God, stir crazy.
I crossed the finish line when I saw 100, it shows on the screen what mile you're at. And I'm laying on the ground. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And the race director comes over and he's like, oh, actually it rounds up. If you want your 100 mile, you're going to have to go another loop. And I'm like, oh, all right, I could do that. So I think, so it is usually a loop. I guess Burning River is one of the bigger ones that's not. Maybe, I guess it depends. I feel like the 24-hour races, it's usually a loop. I thought 5 miles was the perfect distance because 1 mile was a little, I feel like, for me to pace myself 1 loop every hour, and, when you're 2 miles out, you're kind of at the turnaround point, and then that last mile, you're kind of where there's tents and people actually there. And so, 2 miles out, 20 minutes running, and you're already halfway through that loop, kind of. Yeah. So it did go by pretty fast. I
guess it does give you sort of an internal sense of time.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so used to from triathlon doing that for 4 years, doing heart rate and watch, and really I was just looking at this sky to see oh, I'm going to be running until this is not in the sky anymore. So I would kind of gauge what time it was, but every time I went I could see what my mileage was. But the less I think about where I'm at and the more that I'm in the moment, it's a type of thing that you're kind of forced to be in the present moment, and it just takes so much focus to really get through it that I don't know.
Do you go into a meditative state, or are you actually thinking about gait and what you're eating and things like that?
I jump. Sometimes I'll use distraction. So my strategy was first through 30 miles was, just no music or anything. Then from 30 to 50, I was able to listen to music. And then in my head from Ironman training, it's the race doesn't start until the halfway point. So at that point is when I started taking caffeine. And so that was kind of my treat at mile 50. And then 50 to 80, I had no music. And then the last 20 miles, I had music again. So that music was one way, like as a bit of a distraction. Sometimes I focus on things like my gait or relaxing my shoulders. That's something that, like, if I'm not really conscious about that, I can start getting some like tension in my back, and then I lose my form, and then like the run economy and everything, it starts, and then you start overcompensating. So I really try to focus on my shoulders and making sure that my arms are relaxed.
What kind of music are you listening to?
Pandora, kind of like, I don't know. I wouldn't say like club, like dance kind of. I don't know. I don't really know what SIS radio is, but that's like something that popped up, and so I've been listening it ever since. I don't know.
Does your gait change when different songs come up?
So I think I do run faster with music. So yeah, I would say that it does kind of give me that extra boost. So yeah, I try not to listen to it the whole time. I think, especially because I listen to stuff that's more upbeat, I think that would almost be too much to be listening to that for 20 hours. So a few hours here and there is what I think works for me.
And what is your support providing? What are they doing?
So there are people that have crews, and I didn't have that. You don't have to have that. So yeah, like there'll be like 4 or 5 people making sure you have everything you need and helping you. But I thought that the race was so well organized, and the race organizers and volunteers, like at the start, there was food and sports drinks, and then at the halfway mark they had another one with like limited fueling options, and then at mile 1 and 4 they had your own self-serve water that you could grab some at those. So they had it stocked enough that I felt like I would be fine, especially because that's how I kind of did my first 2. But then I did have a friend surprise me, and in the last 20 miles, we ran together, which was really nice, because the person ahead of me was like 10 miles ahead, and then the person behind me was like 10 or 15 miles behind. So I had been running the whole, 16 hours of that on my own. And so it was really nice to finish with that company. He wasn't expecting to do that. He was wearing flip-flops.
And he ran 20 miles in flip-flops?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. He gets the award.
I know, right? The longest he had run is 17 miles. So I was like, oh, you're PRing. We're both PRing.
That's funny.
It was fun.
You talked a little bit about tactics. Do you have any tactics other than sort of that strategy of the music at certain times and the caffeine, or, do you perceive it as racing against yourself or against others, or how are you going into the race?
I'm kind of more of the run your own race, because if you're too aware of other people, then you can easily, not take care of yourself, not be mindful of, am I pushing too hard? And then making sure, if you start getting in that, I feel like you're setting yourself up for, failure, because you have to really, it's more, even like for the future ultras that I do, I'm not so concerned about where I place as much as what are my own personal goals, and can I reach those with distance or time.
Are you running based on heart rate or on pace, or how are you doing that?
By feel.
By feel.
Yeah. And it's worked. yeah, I don't know. Like, I used to, in triathlon, get really into that, and it goes by a lot faster, and I just feel like when I have more energy, I can go a little bit faster. When I don't, and I know over the course of 24 hours that will happen, so I'm not gonna, I really feel like it's more important to be in tune than to push through. Like, I think in triathlon, you kind of push through no matter what, and I think you could get away with it because it's, half the time, and like the intensity level is a little bit different. So I have no idea what my, what every single lap, what my time was, other than like seeing it as I was crossing the like aid station.
And do you adjust based on that, or you just continue going on how you feel?
Yeah. I mean, especially because I don't wear a watch. I just look at the sun, make sure I'm eating. And with the fueling, it's really like, what do I feel like eating?
Right.
And I do usually do, like, they had Scratch, so I was doing that.
What's Scratch?
It's like, it's a newer kind of sports beverage, sports drink. I don't really like the Gatorade. So it's kind of like a milder version of that, and settles in your stomach a little bit. So I did that. Did gels. They had fruit, bananas, watermelon. They had like pita with guac and pita with hummus. They had pizza, chicken broth, and ramen at night. I did some of that. Yeah, I mean, anything that you could keep down. And
do you have stomach issues?
No.
That's good.
Like, I don't know why I like brag about this, but like I've been able to like go on a 100-mile bike ride, and sometimes I crave like sugar, fat, eat a Big Mac, and then go on like a 5 or 10-mile run. And it's like, I don't know if it's just because I've been doing this for so long, but yeah, I'm very lucky because I do see it a lot, especially in the longer distances. Like, there was definitely some of that happening at this race, seeing people that weren't able to keep it down. So, yeah, it does happen.
That is lucky. So your training, is that also by feel? Do you have a coach?
I did work with a coach for triathlon for a couple of years, but right now I am, just kind of doing it on my own. I mean, my training volume is probably not what you would expect. Like, I think because I injured myself during my 100-miler in January, for New Year's, January is out, and then I just started up again slowly in February. And then I had a marathon in April. So I was on a marathon training plan for 12 weeks until that, and then April, May. So then there was another 6 to 8 weeks from that marathon to this ultra. So not a lot of time. And so the max weekly mileage was probably like 50 or 60 miles. And I know, like my longest run before it was 30 miles. So, I mean...
And are you doing weightlifting or cross-training or anything like that, too?
Yeah, so I do weightlifting twice a week. And then now that I'm doing triathlon training, I'll be doing, like 2 or 3 swims, 2 or 3 bikes, 2 or 3 runs, and then weights twice a week, and sometimes yoga.
What's your weight workout like?
I mean, it's very basic. I mean, it's all body, so... bicep curls, lunges, squats. It's pretty much all with the free weights. The one that I've really like, this is a new one, is runner's arms, where you like, I don't know. It really helps. Like you only have to hold like 8 or 10 pounds, but I do it for a minute. And I think that's really helped me with like my shoulder issues when I run.
I wonder if that would help loosen your shoulders and relax you because you're used to holding more weight than you are when you don't have your weights. That's interesting.
It's like that. Yeah. I mean, I look like really goofy doing it, but that one's been helping, planks. I do some planks. And so there's like 8 to 10 different ones that I do 3 times. And I have weights at my place, so it's very easy to just do it whenever.
And are you training in the winter in Cleveland?
Yeah. So usually I do like summer triathlon, winter running. And I will run outside no matter what. Like I have those yak tracks that you put on your shoes. And so there's never a bad running day for me. Like even when it's raining, I don't mind. So, I mean, they say there's never bad weather. There's only bad gear, right? Or something like that. So,
so what are your days like? Are you doing exercise adventure full time?
Well, right now I'm studying for personal training certification. So that's something that I'm planning on starting in the fall. So right now, I guess my focus really is just training and then doing that soon. Yeah.
And you mentioned meditation. I want to talk for a while about meditation. And
Sure.
Like a lot of the other stuff that you do, you're extreme. So you've done the 10-day meditation retreats. Tell me about that.
So I was talking to my friend that just went to Thailand, and he's like, I just finished the most difficult thing I've ever done. And he said about this Vipassana retreat. And, he didn't tell me much, just that I had to do it. And so he was also one of the riders that had biked across America. I did it with him, and we were a group of 40 riders doing it for the American Lung Association as a charity ride. So when he told me it was like the toughest thing he's ever done, and I know that, we were side by side for many of those miles across America, I knew that, like, I don't know, just the idea of the challenge kind of like drew me in. So I had never meditated at all and just decided to try it out.
Wait. So you'd never meditated 1 minute and you signed up for 10 days.
Yeah.
Hey, that's cool.
Yeah, I have a tendency to do that. Like even with the row, I didn't know how to row. I had never rowed a boat, but I don't know why that works in my head sometimes. So yeah, I signed up, and there are like I want to say hundreds of different retreats all around the world. So they follow the same format. It's really 12 hours of meditating a day. You're served breakfast, lunch, and like you have something to drink, I think, for dinner maybe. And then your life, like, it's very strict schedule. I watched a documentary recently about how they had prisoners do the Vipassana retreat and how they said it was more strict than, being in their whatever. So I signed up, and I guess that was back in probably like 2008. And mine was in Michigan. So it started the day after Christmas and went through New Year's. And I'm actually planning on doing that same one this fall, or this New Year's and right around Christmas. So, so what do you want to know about these?
Well, one of the things that I found interesting, because I have looked into that before. I think it's really interesting that you can't sneak and go read and draw or something like that.
Yeah.
There's none of that. You're meditating and eating and sleeping.
Yes. So I guess another thing to clarify about it is that, so there are other people, but it's noble silence, meaning you can't talk, and you can't eye contact is a form of communication. So you're advised not to do that and to kind of keep your gaze to the ground. So, so I don't know how to describe what that is, because I know for every person it's different to experience something like that. But I guess for me, it was like you see the world maybe, say you're going to the eye doctor and you think you see the world in this clear way. And then, he says, can you see better? He or she says, can you see better now? And then you see that and you're like, wow, I never knew it could look like this. And so that's really it. It's a shift of perspective. It's of understanding of yourself, understanding of, everyone's experience is different. I could tell you there were moments where I was like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? This is stupid. This is a waste of time. It's the same thing as like endurance challenges. There's moments where you're in pain, you throw your pity party, you're mentally just at that low. And in meditation, it teaches you, and you get to practice that, like acceptance, like, oh, okay, I can feel this and not react to it. So that was really helpful. In endurance, it's helpful in everyday life. So,
did you find that you went through phases? Like the first day, all you do is have like that monkey chatter going on, and then you move into another phase, and something else happens. I've never moved beyond that phase.
Yeah, I feel like the monkey mind. I would say day 2 and 3, they say, is more difficult. I don't know what's like going to arise, but I mean, and I know there's different ways of meditation. The ways that I meditate, like sometimes it's like this body awareness, like what, and other times it's like mindfulness. So sometimes it's like counting your breaths, and like if I do have thoughts, I just label it thinking or worry, and then, come back to what is real and what is now.
Do they provide instruction?
For that retreat, they at the end of the night, you watched a 1-hour video, so everyone watches the same. Yeah. Yep. Yep, that's life in the Vipassana retreat. Are you gonna sign up? Are you gonna go with me this fall? Yeah, I actually want someone to I want a Greyhound or something, because if my car's there, I might end up leaving. And I want to like with my row, I didn't want a follow boat. If I had a follow boat, I probably would have quit. So I'm trying to figure that out.
Anything else about the meditation retreat? Oh, do you have a daily practice?
I do, yeah. So it's in the morning, 10 to 20 minutes every day.
And do you find that makes a difference?
I do, yeah. I mean, if I don't do it, I start to notice. I mean, I think I struggle with the same things that a lot of people in our country, our world struggle with. So anxiety, depression, that's something that helps me with those types of things too. So.
And are you sponsored?
So right now I'm on the Snapple triathlon team. So there's some discounts with that kind of being on their team. Aside from that, I mean, it's not like the row. The row was very, it required a lot of support. So right now it's being on the tri team.
And you're going to go to school for the PT training?
Mm-hmm.
And so you want to become a personal trainer?
Yep. And
to who?
I actually want to do it at the Y. I mean, I would love to guide people through the stages that I was at, when I was 18. So when I was a kid, I was like not so caring about sports, and I was more about being there with my friends, and I wasn't competitive. And so I just thought I wasn't like athletic because I didn't understand why people were like making a big deal about winning and losing, and I just wanted to have fun. And so I kind of pushed away that, but I had to take a gym class, and so I picked a walking running class because I thought it would be an easy A. So when I was there, I was like, well, I might as well run because I'm already stuck here. So that's how I stumbled into running. So I think the greatest changes in myself happened in those early stages when I didn't think I could run 1 mile. 1 mile was like my Mount Everest. And so I think I'm excited to see people push through those moments. I mean, of course, it's exciting to be able to see people would be exciting to see people do bigger things, but I kind of want to work with like everyday people that are struggling maybe to do their first 5K. Or, I would say female athletes. I think that would be fun to work with. So.
In your, I don't know, there was a blurb about your book that you wrote, and it said something about empowerment, female empowerment. Talk to me a little bit about that word. I sometimes have trouble with that word. It seems sort of groovy guru, and I don't know. And I just curious what you think about that word.
I guess I haven't really thought a whole lot about that word. I mean, what are you thinking about it? Like what?
It doesn't seem very powerful to me. I think it's like, to me, I guess it feels like somebody's giving me power rather than me taking power or being powerful. Like I'm going to come in and rescue you and give you power.
Okay, I don't see it like that. This is how I think like empowerment or courage or like any of the things that is the perception of giving, you giving something. It really isn't about that. It's already there. It's just taking away whatever's covering it. So that like infinite possibility thing exists within everyone. But it's sometimes, like for me, it took people to help me uncover that. So I think it's just discovering or rediscovering and being aware of what's already there and the things that we forget. Like, I don't know, it's easy to forget because of the convenience of life, like how capable we are physically and mentally. So I don't think anyone gives it. It's just helping people uncover, helping people see that within themselves, that it's there.
I like that. What are your goals long term?
So I would say that I am kind of careful about setting too many goals because then it creates like a little more pressure. So I do like to take things one thing at a time, and I don't want to burn myself out. So I think I do kind of keep my focus more short term, but I think like in general, the things that are important to me are giving back. I'm very into like living simply, minimalism, and just creating more time in my life instead of chasing other things. And so, time for relationships and growth. But yeah, I would say I'll probably be doing the same things that I've been doing, so far, just in different ways. But I'd say in the shorter term, for like fitness goals, it would be to do a couple more ultra runs next year, and then looking at doing a run across Ohio and visiting schools along the way. So it would potentially be like 10 marathons in 10 days, visiting 10 schools, and then finishing around World Water Day in March. So that's something that I'm playing around with, but want to see where my head's at after the Ironman before, pushing for or planning too much.
Right. Do you have any ultramarathons that you are eyeing?
So I think for next year it would be the same one, the Eagle Up, and then the national championships are right here. So it seems silly not to do that one. And then plus, I mean, if I do want to, I would like to try to do like 100. I think it is possible to do 125 if everything lines up, and because I mean there are a lot of things that with this race I know I could have easily. I mean, I could have walked those 4 hours and got in 112 miles. So to get in another 13 with my training with crew. I mean, there were, just different things that I think that's a possibility. So I'd say that would be something to go for.
Do you like competing?
Against myself, yeah. I mean, I would say that I do thrive when I'm like training with other people too. I don't know. I think that's fun. So yeah, I would say like I'd say like with having the kind of distance goals, it's more about recognizing your own potential versus what that's more where my heart is than beating someone. I don't know. like releasing that idea that I can't is the high, not I beat you.
Right.
So I mean, that's what's kind of about Ironman. It feels a little, I don't know, the ultra crowd, it's like, because there's not screaming fans, because there's not like a big hoopla, like you can finish because it's a loop, you could finish 100 miles and no one can know. Like, it's just like, you have no one there at the finish line. And so you become like your little own running tribe and you're cheering each other on, and you become, I don't know, I just feel like just a little running tribe. Like, I feel like we have to, because it's just so difficult.
And do you want to talk a little bit about the water issues that you're fighting for?
Yeah, so I was living in Australia, and this was when I was in college for an exchange program. And in all the major headlines, it was talking about their water issues. And it just started getting this ball in my head rolling about like, wow, this is a very developed place and they're freaking out about water. And that's something that I've wasted my entire life. I didn't, I never thought about running out of water or needing to conserve water. And I'm definitely not of the make people feel guilty for whatever water wealth we have here. It's just more about, hey, we can make a huge impact in someone's life just by helping them get water. So I was learning about the water issues in Australia, and I took an environmental science class, and the professor mentioned that the wars of the future would be on water. And that was like one of those moments where it's like you can't unlearn it, you can't reverse it. Like, it just felt so wrong to me, and it was shocking, and it was almost embarrassing that I didn't know anything about it. And it almost had the same effect if someone told me, like, hey, the wars of our future, we're going to be fighting over air. Like, it's just like, really? We haven't figured out water, and we have like smartphones and buildings, and I mean, I don't know. And I would say that like I have in other ways, really prioritize finding ways to help. So I started researching, and the more I found out about it, the more I wanted to do something. And that's when I did the big ride. That's the first time, the bike ride across the United States, that's the first time that I did something for charity, like an athletic event. So I didn't really understand that whole, you're going to do this thing and it's going to raise money, but how? So that's where I kind of started to know that you can bring the two together. You can basically do anything and make it into a fundraiser.
And the money does go, in fact, to the organization.
Yes. So that was very important to me because I didn't want kids that are having lemonade stands to be going to pay for my rowboat. So, I did work really hard to make sure that there were sponsorship funds. And before that, it was what I had saved up with summer's lifeguarding. And I put everything out there to make that work, especially when there weren't any sponsors involved. So I was very, fortunate to have had sponsors to help make that possible. A lot of local companies and a lot of companies that were also passionate about water. So Moen, Pentair, Connecticut, those are some local ones. And then Spire out in Geneva was the title sponsor. So the local support was amazing. And because of their sponsorship, that made it possible that 100% of donations went to the nonprofit and then after the row, a lot of fundraising continued with speaking engagements and working with different Rotary clubs and doing different events. So I would say, it almost doubled after with all the different events.
And what can people who want to support your cause, what can they do?
So the organization that I've partnered with is called H2O for Life, and their website is h2oforlifeschools.org. And $30 is enough to help one person get clean water. So if you want to do that, that would be awesome.
What do you think about water in Ohio? I sometimes worry about us not being able to protect our own water.
Yeah.
And we're so lucky with all this water.
Yeah, I feel like, there are things within our control and there are things outside of our control. And whenever we have a chance to change and to do something within our control, there's so many ways that we can here in Ohio, whether it's one of my best friends has a nonprofit called Drink Local, Drink Tap. So they do lots of different events to help our water here. They're doing beach cleanups and I think where I spend most of my headspace is what can be done. I think there's always room for improvement. Yeah.
Well, we're wrapping things up, but before that, is there anything else you'd like to talk about that we haven't covered?
Well, I think sometimes people will be like, oh, I could never run 100 miles. I can never do this. I can never do that. And the truth is, I said that to myself at one point too. So the only thing that I would leave people with is just that idea that just because you think you can't do it doesn't mean you can't do it. It's possible that you can. And so I think trying is the most important thing. And, I've failed, and that's a part of the process of succeeding. So, I guess that's it.
What is the first step?
The first step?
If you think you can't do it.
For me, it was the first mile. I did 1 mile, and that made me think that I could do 2. And then after doing 2 miles, that made me think I could do 3. So I think it depends on what your goal is. But, everything has momentum. So when you take that first step, it's the most difficult, but then it gets easier as you go. So
Great. Well, thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Very good. Well, thank you. Thanks for listening. Sign up for the Hear Her Sports newsletter, which I send out every other week. It includes links to a couple of videos or articles or websites that I discover while researching guests. It's really fun to put together, so I hope you enjoy it. You can sign up at hearhersports.com. Please rate and review Hear Her Sports on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Doing so definitely helps others find us. Do you know any sporty, adventurous women? Please tell them about these interviews with inspiring, adventurous women. And finally, help to keep this podcast going with a donation of any size. Go to the donate page at hearhersports.com. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Hey there, my name is Michael Laminato and this is Pit Pass F1, a brand new podcast that'll take you closer to the action of the world's most prestigious motorsport. From Monaco to Miami and Australia to Azerbaijan, Pit Pass F1 is on the ground and has you covered. Esteemed F1 journalists Julianne Cerasoli and Chris Medland will take you inside the sport every round. They'll keep you up to date with the latest news breaking in Formula One and the most influential views shaping the world of Grand Prix racing. Every Friday, we'll be bringing you a track guide and race preview, and Chris and Ju will be in your feed every morning from Saturday through to Monday to keep you up to date on all the day's action on and off the track. So if you want to be in the know on the latest in Formula One, subscribe wherever you get your favourite podcasts and visit us at evergreenpodcasts.com. Pit Pass F1, a brand new show for Evergreen Podcasts.